Hi everyone, it's Shannon and welcome to today's video. So as you can see, I have absolutely not a stitch of makeup on, and that is because I am going to be reviewing the brand new concealer and color corrector from Natasha Denona. So I actually have two of the concealer shades and then one of the color corrector, and I'm going to be trying them on today. Now this is not going to be a first impression. I have already tested this out, but I am going to do it on camera and give you my thoughts because I do have some thoughts, and I'm kind of reviewing it and showing you how they compare, kind of two different shades. There's so many different shades, so I was really kind of confused which shade I should choose, but then I also love a color corrector, so I'm gonna review them today. Okay, so let's first talk about the concealer. It is called the Hy-Glam Concealer, and it comes in 50 shades. Yes, 50. So my advice to you is, if you are interested in this concealer, if you have it in store, go and swatch it, because while there's a lot of shades and a lot of undertones, you can kind of, it's supposed to make it easier. It's a little complicated, and it's probably more complicated than you realize. So I picked two shades. I'm gonna kind of swatch them and you'll see the difference. But there is fair, light, medium, tan, dark, and deep. They go from like 1 to all the way up to 16, but it has rosy, yellow, peach, neutral, rosy, neutral, yellow, peach, like all these different types of undertones. So it can get a little complicated. And also, as far as like the deepness between the shades is, it varies. You'll see in a second. So I went with light. I went in the light column, which I knew I was light. I know I'm not fair, definitely not medium. I do like a little brightness under my eyes, but not too much. I don't want it to be too much lighter than my foundation. But then also I do have more darkness than I used to have. I did filler back in 2020, and if you follow me on TikTok, I actually just recently got my filler dissolved. Now, I didn't think that there was that much filler left, but I had these two bumps like right here that really bothered me, and when I would like wake up in the morning, I had like really swollen here because the filler had kind of moved down. And then I thought that the filler had gone. I mean, it had been pretty much 3 years. Well, when I got it dissolved to remove that portion, I realized that it hadn't dissolved under my eyes, and I have more, circles under my eyes and darkness than I did before. I'm doing PRP now as an alternative, which I will probably be documenting and I'm talking about in a later video, in a future video. But right now I do have more darkness. So I've always done some color correcting in the past, but now I probably need it more than I have in the future, than I have recently. So I purchased two. I went with light, and light goes from like 2 to 4. I went with R2, which is rosy, and P2, which is like peach 2. So I went with rosy 2. So let's do the swatching. So here is rosy, so R2. This is a rosy undertone, and as you can see, this one is very light. Okay, and then here is going to be P2, which has the peach undertone. So as you can see, this one is not as light. Even though they're both 2, the R2 is much lighter. So that is the reason why I say go in store. The R2 can work, but it is fairly light, and I'm going to be using it more for brightening, and probably using these as a combination in the two. And I am only doing that because I purchased them and I have them both. But if I were to repurchase them again, I would go for the P2 or maybe an R, but like a darker one. So maybe the RN3 or a little bit deeper. But I haven't swatched them. I haven't swatched any other colors, just the ones that I've gotten. So that's the only thing. This one is just really light for me, and when I wear it, it's a little too light. But I can wear it in combination with this one, or I can wear it in combination with the color corrector. Now the color corrector comes in 6 shades, so it comes in C1, C2, up to C6. So that is a little bit better. And let's go ahead and swatch this, and let me see here. And this is the C2. So that's the R2, P2, and this is the C2 color corrector. So you can kind of see, so I can combine the C2 and the R2 to really make a perfect kind of layer. Or I can kind of just go with the P2 if I'm not too dark. So it just depends on the day. So I have tried these a couple times, and I'll be going over my thoughts on it. But some days I have darker circles than others. So if I have a darker circle than others, I will go with the color corrector and the R2. But if it's kind of like a normal day, don't need a lot of coverage, then I'm going to go with the P2. Okay, so on the Natasha Denona website, it states it is a brightening and hydrating crease-proof serum concealer delivering a new full performance formula with advanced skincare properties. Natasha introduces the game-changing Hy-Glam Concealer. Inspired by the best-selling HY-GEN Primer Serum, this originally developed hybrid full-glam corrector consists of high-tech active ingredients that work instantly and over time to brighten dark circles, reduce puffiness, and blur the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles after 28 days of daily use. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't tend to wear concealer 28 days in a row, mainly because I work from home, and the only time I really wear makeup is when I'm on camera or when I'm going out, which is honestly not often. Now, if you are someone that works in an office and goes, wears the same makeup every day, then maybe you will see a difference. But I'm also not a big fan of skincare in makeup. I think you have skincare and you have makeup, that they should be separate. So you shouldn't go for a concealer for skincare. Doesn't mean it's not going to be a good concealer, but I don't really believe the skincare claims. But, so I will say, let me go ahead and try these two on. So I'm going to try on the R2 first. I'm going to try the R2 on this side and the P2 on this side, just so you can see them differently. And then I'll take it off, and then I will show you with the corrector, what the corrector does. So let's go ahead and start with the R2, and the R2 is very light, like I mentioned. So the R2 is a very, very light concealer, and you can see right here, super light. I won't wear this one on its own typically. It's a little too light for me without the color corrector. Now with the color corrector, it actually looks really nice, but it's just a little too pale for me. Okay, so there is the R2, and I think it's just a little too pale for me again, but with the color corrector, it works really well. I think I probably would get the RN3 if I were to get it again. However, the P2 really works well for me. So let's go ahead and do that one right now. Make sure I grab the right one. So here is the P2, and I'm gonna put this on the other side, and you can kind of see the difference. Okay, so here is the P2, and you can kind of see how it's just a little bit darker. Okay, so here is the P2. So here's a comparison, R2, P2. I think the P2 looks better. Again, it is a little bit darker, and it covers up my dark circles a little bit better. So, this, I guess, also preference. Now, depending on, I will definitely use the R2 for brightening, highlighting, etc. But again, I'm going to use the corrector. So I'm going to take this off so you can kind of see the difference. So this is the R2, P2, so you can kind of see the difference. And I'm going to go take this off, and then we'll come back and try the corrector. Okay, so now let's talk about the corrector. And the corrector, again, so all of these are $30. So they are each $30, whether it's the concealer or the corrector. Now the corrector is called the Hy-Glam Corrector, and it comes in 6 shades, so C1 to C6. And it is a brightening and hydrating crease-proof serum corrector, delivering a full performance formula with advanced skincare properties. So it's kind of the same thing. It's the same, concept, same formula, except that it is like peachier shades to color, to color correct. So the one thing I do like about it is that the top is different. So when I go to reach, I know that this is the corrector and these two are the concealers. I like that because most people aren't going to have 2 concealers. You're going to have 1 and 1. So that's going to be great. So I got the shade C2, which is essentially for the light fair, you know, skin tone. So there's like fair, light, and so forth. So this is I think the right shade for me. I'm going to put it on both eyes, and then I will go back in with the R2 and the P2 and put it on top so you can see kind of the layering, how it looks. But let's go ahead and put it on, and so you can see how it color corrects my dark circles, which again, I don't have deep dark circles, but I have some. And you know, I think everybody notices their own, you know, flaws more than anybody else, but I do see them. And especially, like I said, since I have since removed the filler, to me they are more prominent. So here is with the corrector and here was without. Definitely a big improvement. Okay, so here are my eyes with the color corrector under both. I think I could probably get away with just using the color corrector and not going in with additional concealer. I could go in with this and then go in with my foundation. I think I could get away with that. But for purposes of this video, I will go ahead and go and layer. And they do layer, I will say they do layer really well. You know, so they do layer really well as far as the color corrector and the concealer. So I'm gonna go in with the R2 first and go in on this side so I'm consistent. Okay, so that is the R2 with the color corrector, the C2 color corrector. And now I'm gonna go in with the P2 on this side, which again, you know, the P2 and the C2, it's probably a little too much peach for color correcting. So I don't necessarily need both, but I typically will use the P2 on its own unless I feel like I need more color correcting. But again, for purposes of this video, I'm going to do both. Okay, so there you have it. This is the P2 with the color corrector C2, and this is the R2 with the color corrector C2, and there you can have the comparisons. Okay, so here is the side-by-side comparison. Now I'm gonna go back in and kind of even it out and probably redo it a little bit because I am going to be filming some other videos and I wanted to give like a full kind of review of the creasing. Now, I will say, it says it's creaseless. That's not true. To me, it creases. However, I'm 46, I'll be 47 in less than 2 months. It creases. Everything creases on me. But I will say, now I've worn it twice since then, and I've done it with the P2 by itself and the R2 with the C2, pretty much the same result. It creased early on. However, it pretty much lasted and it didn't get significantly worse. Like it creased initially, but then it kind of stayed the same. Now it wore off like every other concealer does. But I don't think it aged me considerably. And I thought it wore really, really well. So I do really like it. I'll come back and going to do my full face kind of with, and I'll kind of talk about it. But I think it's a really good concealer, and I will come back and talk about my initial thoughts, and then I will film a bunch of videos because I'm doing a bunch of filming today, and then I'll come at the end and kind of give you my final thoughts and kind of final review of these products. Okay, so I have put my foundation on and I have redid my concealer. So what I did is I put the C2, the color corrector, along with the R2, which is the lighter one, and that's what I'm wearing right now. So you can see it's creased a little bit, but that is typical. I did set it with my Becca under eye powder, which you can't buy anymore. So I've set it with that, and I am going to film some other videos, so I will come back at the end, kind of a filming, and kind of do a kind of recap of what it's like. So, but this is kind of what it looks like now. I think it looks good. It looks typical. Do I have other concealers that probably crease less early on? Yes, but again, my experience having worn this already twice is that it pretty much stays this way. So I will come back in a few hours and kind of recap. Okay, so I am back. I have been filming on and off for a couple hours now, and So kind of give you my recap. So as I mentioned, you can kind of see I've been wearing this. Now this isn't a full wear test. Probably been wearing this 4 or 5 hours. I haven't really touched up my makeup as far as my under eyes. I've kind of touched up like as far as powdering and my lipstick, but that's it. It is a good concealer. It is a good concealer. It does crease early on for me, but I am, again, mid to late 40s and concealers crease on me. But it wears, once it sets, it pretty much wears the same way. I don't think it's a full coverage concealer. I think it's a light, but somewhere like a medium, to full coverage. I think it wears well. I really like, of the three, I really like the color corrector. I don't think I like it more than the Magic Vanish, but I do think it is a good color corrector. I do really like it. I think of the, that's probably what I like the most, but then I also like the P2 because I think the P2 is a good concealer that I can avoid the color corrector. So I like the color corrector, but I would probably pair the color corrector with a different concealer, or I would just wear the P2, which is kind of a color corrector within the concealer. But I think it's good. It's not great. It's not the best. I think I prefer the Charlotte Tilbury over this one, but I think it's good. And it's worth trying out if you like Natasha Denona. It's $30, so I think it's a little cheaper. I don't remember how much the Charlotte Tilbury one is, but it's good. And, concealers work for different people. So I think this might be, good for other people, but I really like the, the color corrector I think is good. So again, it is a good, definitely better than her old one, her old formula. And I think it's a good solid concealer, but again, not necessarily my favorite. So with that, if you like this video, click like, click and subscribe. That way you get a notification every time I post a new video. Bye everyone.